we've got you covered all season long. Welcome to the BCSN Nation podcast, powered by Buffalo Wild Wings.
All right, here it is, Season 4, Episode 10. Where has the time gone of the BCSN Nation podcast, powered by Buffalo Wild Wings?
The greatest of all time.
Sounds a little deeper this week for some reason.
Maybe
I like it.
Maybe it was just me. Brandon Carnes, Justin Feldkamp, Mason Lowry. Things are already off the record.
I think that's just what you sound like first thing in the morning.
I would like
coffee?
to assume.
You a coffee drinker?
I have an empty coffee cup about 2 feet to my right, if that gives you any indication on that answer. Here we are, Week 10. I want to know, stay in the Halloween theme. Has any coach in the area been frightfully good at their job this season? Your Coach of the Year candidates as we sit in the final week of the season, Mason.
I think I know who I would give it to at this point. It's somebody that is maybe a touch off the beaten path, and that's Derek Pennington over at Clay.
I thought of that too, yeah.
They play Northview this week. It's going to take the letdown of all letdowns for them to lose to Northview. Nobody would have pegged Clay, having lost all they lost from last year, 3-2 in the Buckeye division. That's nuts. And to pick off two of the heavyweights in year one, and Anthony Wayne and then Whitmer last week, he's got them going places. John Gallius, of course, over the previous decade, laid the foundation for the success that Clay is having. Mason 𝗦𝗫𝗀 helped to, I think, build up the youth program, because when you see somebody as good as he has been, that gets more people not only to start playing when they're younger, but to stay in the district. Yep. That's so important, because for years, a lot of the city of Oregon's best players have ended up at Central and elsewhere. So the job that Derek has done with a super young team to come in, they're going to be a playoff team in year one, and that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll give you a few. I like to spread the wealth, and in the sense of how do I determine who I would put on a list of candidates for Coach of the Year, essentially, what did the team do last year? What are they doing this year? Do they contend for a league title, a playoff spot? So that is kind of the way I look at it, and I'll give you two off the beaten path after I get to an initial list. Joe Horn from St. John's, 1-9 last year.
That's Yao's pick.
Have a chance to get to the postseason. They're going to need a win and some help. Dirk Connor at Perrysburg in the ever-present, always, you just mentioned heavyweights. If they can take down Whitmer on Friday, which we'll get to in a little bit, they would be the outright champs. Easier said than done. David Dominic at Archbold, contending for a 1 seed. If they pull off an upset and beat Liberty Center, they'd win the NWAL. Tyler Swery at Napoleon, already NLL Cardinal Division champs. Bill Fisher at Genoa, chance for an outright NBC title. Your boy Gary Quizno at Margaretta, chance for an outright title and a top 4 seed. Greg Bishop at North Baltimore, re-emerging that program. And then the two off the beaten path, Toledo Christian head coach Andrew Skeels. They went from 8-man and now returning to 11-man, and they got a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, that'd be impressive. Going from 8-man to 11-man, yes, in Division 7, but still, to be able to get to the postseason would be tremendous. And then in the City League, Rush Jennings at Waite. They were 1-9 last year. Unlikely to win on Friday against a very good Napoleon team. But hey, if they pull an upset, they could go from 1-9 to 5-5. Coach told me kind of off camera, hey, we're going to contend in the City League. And this is a first-year coach. He's the wrestling coach there. He said we're going to compete, and by golly, he has.
And I think I'm right in saying he has never been a high school football coach before at any level, any position. He's coached some youth teams in junior high. But to never have been a high school football coach at all and to make the improvements that they've done in year one is really remarkable.
And he wasn't wrong. They were in the running for the City League title until that loss to Lima Senior last week. Justin mentioned my guy, Tyler Swery, over at Napoleon. You lose Trey Rubenstein, Parker Woods, Owen Espinoza, all these guys that we've talked all season about. We talked preseason. How do you replace that? He's done a darn fine job. We'll talk a little bit more about Napoleon here in a second.
Stephen Adams, too. Let's not forget him down at Finley.
Stephen Adams. We will talk more about Stephen Adams, too. We've just run you the gamut of a preview of what's coming up, clip of the week, game of the week, so much more, obviously, every single week right here at 4 p.m. on BCSN or anywhere you get your audio mediums. And make sure you follow at BCSN Sports, and we'll get right into Coach Swery and company. A big matchup last week, taking on Fremont Ross, NLL Cardinal on the line. Justin may have blown the lead already. They are NLL Cardinal champions. First time winning the NLL since 2012 for the Wildcats. And this was, I was going to put the clip on the podcast of me last week saying, this is going to be a low-scoring game, a lot of clock running off, a lot of running game. Check, check, check. 7-0 the final score. They got on the right side of the 7-0. They lost to A-Dub 7-0 earlier in the season, but great job, Napoleon, and just finding different ways to win throughout the season. Blowouts, close games, 7-0. A lot of fun.
It's like the community mentality of Napoleon. They're
Put your
always
hard hat on,
always
baby.
going to punch above their weight, and they're going to pick up their metal lunch boxes and their blue collars and go to work.
Yeah.
How crazy is it in this day and age of football that a team had 2 7-0 games
In one season, yeah.
in a season? They just fight till the end. They're so physical, and they don't seem to get tired. It's when you're winning, you don't feel the strain,
Sure.
the exhaustion of, and they've got a lot of guys that go both ways, like Fremont Ross does. They can just wear people down and wear people out with their physicality, and we've talked about it the last several weeks. Now, when you have those two really capable backs, you can use Hayden Grohl to maybe soften up defenses so that George Eggers then, against tired legs, can do his thing. And from the Fremont Ross side, it was penalties. They just kept stubbing their toes, and Chad Long was like 1 step forward, 2 steps back constantly, and it's just not acceptable, the way he put it, this late in the season to make some of the mistakes that they made. Fremont Ross, and we know Napoleon's going to be dangerous in the tournament.
100%.
I don't think anybody's going to want to see Fremont in the first round.
Sure.
They're tough. They're physical. They can run the football. Running teams can go far. They play great defense. Held Napoleon to just 7.
Yep.
It's going to be an interesting few weeks for those two.
Fremont Ross, Justin, number 12 right now in the D2 Region 6 standings.
Correct. I think if they would get in, they'd be going against likely a 5 seed, maybe a 6-11 game. So that could be interesting there. But for Napoleon, I'd call this a grinded out type of win. I think it speaks to the culture there because, when you're going, if you're doing a 3 and out or you're driving for 47 yards and then you turn it over on downs, you just may get discouraged. But to be able to go back to the sideline, regroup, talk to your coaching staff, regroup, get back out there, find a way, do that same thing again, over and over again, and then finally break through.
Just
late
ram your
in the
head against the
fourth
wall
quarter.
until it works, baby.
But that defense allowed 20 points versus Defiance way back in week 1. Since then, they've given up no more than 15 points in any other game. Versus their like Cardinal division competition, they've given up 8 points, 14 points, 3 points, and a goose egg. So they've clinched at least a top 8 seed and a home game. If they win versus Wade on Friday, they're going to clinch a first-round bye. But shout out to the defense. I'm going to list off all the guys. George Eggers, Max Schweihart, Tristan Fellows, Lucas Gherkin, Hayden Gherkin, Spencer Durham, Ignacio Corona, Paul Saucer, Cole Kerrigan, Tucker Shepard, and Zach Barton. Just some playmakers holding Fremont Ross or any team to 0 points. You got to tip your cap to them, and those guys have delivered the goods time and time and time again.
I think Fremont Ross, I think the schedule sets up well for them because they've got Bowling Green this week. Bowling Green has struggled all year. It's a nice on-ramp for them going into the postseason because that's a game that they should win. They should be able to put themselves right. And you talk about having to go to a 5 or a 6 or a 7. You look at some of the schools that are potentially up there, Anthony Wayne, St. Francis, and now Clay. And who wouldn't love to have an all-local? Wouldn't you love to see Anthony Wayne, Fremont Ross in the first round? That could be 7-0 too, just like when they played Napoleon. We'll see.
Yeah, a lot of fun in this one. And the biggest stat that stood out to me looking at everything from this game, Fremont Ross had 2 possessions in the second half.
That's crazy.
They got the ball twice. That is clock control. That is wearing the defense down and just saying, you can't score because you don't get the ball. Fremont Ross falling 7-0. Napoleon is your NLL Cardinal champions. And now we're going to somebody who maybe didn't get a championship, but he got a special football. That's our player of the week, brought to you by Dunn Chevy. Hit it, Cisco. Jeremiah Fuller. You see the stats on the screen. If you're not watching, listen up. 12 carries, 153 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Guys, that was the first half. That was it. And then he had a 60-yard return on a kickoff after a safety that he brought back for a touchdown. 3 total touchdowns. You add in the 60. 213 total yards for Jeremiah Fuller. Immediately did exactly what you want your running back to do. Thanked his offensive line when I talked to him. He said, those guys are just making holes. I'm patient, and then I let myself explode through where I need to go.
They have been interesting and maybe the most interesting team in my decade-ish here in Toledo and covering and watching high school football, doing pregame shows, highlight shows, et cetera, with Coach Greg Dempsey. Because, let's be frank, in general, they go 9-1 or 10-0, maybe 8-2. They'll go on a deep playoff run. I mean, their second home is Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. And it's just expected. And I just admire Coach Dempsey and the staff because every single year you have gigantic expectations. And when they are on 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, that's a lot to lift. It's not as if you are a NFL team and you're sitting on advertisements with State Farm and Progressive Insurance. And
Are you in good hands?
Yes, exactly. We're always looking for sponsorships out there. So with these guys,
Put us in
and
good
Jeremiah
hands.
Fuller, just an example of losing. And I think the lessons, the life lessons that these guys are learning this year on Central Catholic's football team are going to pay dividends because they could be anywhere between a 3 to a 6 seed if they beat Mona Shores. So they're going to have to go in a different route on their journey to Canton if they are going to get there, as opposed to being a 1 seed or a 2 seed throughout and having home field advantage for an extended amount of time or being the clear-cut team to beat. We'll get to region and playoffs next week, but at the same time, it's been a great season and a fascinating, interesting season to watch.
And it's been a season about growing up, too, I think, for them, because when you consider all the veteran teams they've had that have won state championships or gotten to a state title game and barely lost last year, these guys had to grow up real fast. They had to replace some guys on the offensive line. You lose a terrific tailback, and the list goes on. And to face the start of season schedule as they did, they learned a lot about themselves and what it takes to win in big games against good teams. What's going to be interesting for me in the postseason, because of where they'll be seated, they're going to have to play the types of teams that they don't see. Like, when was the last time you thought of Central Catholic playing St. Mary's Memorial, for example? Small communities that are very much Napoleon-esque in terms of their attitudes and how they play, and they don't see teams and communities like that very often. So this would be a heck of a job by Coach Dempsey and company if they could become a typical Central Catholic team again in time for the playoffs.
Yeah, Jeremiah Fuller thanked everybody in the community for getting him the votes, and he said it felt a whole lot better to do that against your rival as they beat St. Francis. 24 straight wins in the Irish Night rivalry. That is our Dunn Chevy Player of the Week, Jeremiah Fuller. Together, let's drive, and we'll drive right back here after 30 seconds from Buffalo Wild Wings. Hit us, let's go.
Buffalo Wild Wings, buy one, get one free. Boneless Thursdays saved me so much cash. I can finally do everything I've ever wanted in life, like skydiving. You ready? No, this was a mistake, a huge mistake. I want to go back. I want to go back. Go. Yeah, I'll probably just use the money I saved to get more buy one, get one free boneless wings at B-Dubs. No brainer. Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's go sports bar.
At participating locations, not valid with other offers or discounts. See website or app for details.
You will hear us talk a lot about playoffs this week and next week. Right now, this isn't a playoff matchup we're talking about, but these are two teams that are trying to end the season on a high note, build momentum as you move toward the 2026 season, and two teams that have had their ups in a couple of games, had their downs, injuries. Both of these teams have been plagued by it throughout the season. Southview at Springfield, NLL Cardinal action this Friday on the BCSN Plus app.
This is a gain momentum type of game for me.
Yeah.
Both of them have been eliminated from the postseason. You mentioned injuries, younger players up and down the roster on both sides. They had younger players initially in the preseason before all the injuries. Then you got more younger guys coming up. I know for Southview, their offensive line has been the issue, the concern. They knew that was an issue that was going to be a concern based on the fact of lack of varsity experience entering the season. So you got to chalk certain things up. You know, in the high school football, most of the time it will be cyclical based upon which class is coming up and how long has that group been together. What have they done when they were in junior high or on the freshman team or on the JV team? So you got that experience this year. You hope that the experience pays off in 2026 and you rally those guys and have them keep believing. And how do you keep them believing? You go win a football game in week 10.
You could kind of just see the relief on Mo MacArthur's face in his post-game interview
100%.
last week. Just like, it's been a rough year, but it feels so good to finally get another win. And I'm sure that's coursing up and down that whole program. We talked so much about Springfield early in the year because they pulled off those two impressive wins, blowing out Maumee and then beating Northview, I think it was the next week.
44-10 in that one.
Yeah. The wheels kind of came off because of injuries.
Yeah.
But I think back to some of the Springfield teams I've seen since Pat Gucciardo left. Mm-hmm. And the thing that struck me was just the amount of silly things they were doing and not playing terribly disciplined football. Sam Arredondo has discipline in that team, and that's so important, especially when you've got a lot of kids that are playing. I mean, they're starting a freshman at wide receiver. They had a freshman start last year on the line, Vashon Winfrey, who's been hurt.
Yep.
And they just keep losing guys. They don't really have a running back since Gabe Gregory got hurt. If they're running it, it's Logan Goodrick. But when I saw them against Fremont Ross, I thought they did a lot of really good things. They do the best they can with what they've got to get the ball to their best athletes. And that's all you can really ask of an offense. I thought they played reasonably well on defense. Fremont Ross just crammed it down their throat. I think the future is really bright for Springfield, and I really hope for Gabe Gregory and that whole community's sake that he can get back to what he was like before the injury. That was a nasty one. And we saw with Bryant Koback, it can take years and years for you to be like you were before you had a catastrophic leg injury. So we'll see.
Yeah, to wrap up the gain momentum type of deal and finish this season and springboard into next season, at the NFL level, we got plenty of Lions fans listening to this podcast each week. A few years ago, you remember when the Lions went to Lambeau Field and beat Green Bay and eliminated them from the playoffs? Yeah. The Lions didn't make the playoffs, but they used that to get better the next year.
Yeah, St. John's last year, too, winning in Week 10.
A lot of Lions fans would tell you that was a crucial moment in the upward trajectory of the Lions franchise.
Check this one out Friday night, 7 p.m. on the BCSN Plus app. And now it is time for everybody's favorite, or at least mine for now. I'll say it is. Clip of the week brought to you by Renewal by Anderson. Hit it, let's go. I dubbed this on Friday to Mark Coons.
This was great.
The Vic 6.
Yes, indeed.
Here we go.
That's a heck of a line.
Collins Walker rolls to his right.
Oh, brutal.
Nope. You can't. Nope. Get out of the way. I'll see you in the end zone. Texas A&M Aggies fan, I hope you're watching.
Yeah.
You got a good one. He's deadly in coverage. I will say, I don't know how he got away with this. All right. But no flag on the play means no flag on this replay. Vic 6, baby.
Yeah, I like it. That's called a freshman quarterback mistake right there. I think he was trying to get the ball out of bounds, but he didn't have enough juice behind it. I mean, there was 4 red jerseys right there, so I'm not necessarily sure what the end goal was there.
Yeah, try and make a play.
Trying to make a play.
Yeah, I hear you, but sometimes you just gotta swallow it and take the sack, or clearly throw it out of bounds. But anyway. Looking like Tecmo's Super Bowl Bo Jackson right there. Love it. But yeah, Vic is electrifying. He does it on special teams. He's going to be a valuable asset for the Aggies.
The thing that I'm struck by right here is just how, at the same time, kind of herky-jerky, but also extremely smooth, the way he moves with the football.
Such a tremendous athlete. Again, we won't call the penalty because I didn't see one on the field, but he gets his hand down, right, keeps his knee off the turf, and then tells 2 guys, I'm going to make you look silly real quick. I got reservations for 6. Victor Singleton, our clip of the week. The Irish are in the playoffs. We'll see what their seed ends up as. We told you the 40-0 win over St. Francis. You want more clips like this, head over to our BCSN Sports TikTok page. And now we got student section of the week. You get everything this week if you are Panther Nation. Game Day Nation and Game Day Tailgate will be there. And, of course, that means I'm there. I'm bringing the belt back to Panther Nation. Yeah, there was a bevy of pictures I got from Katie Peters over there. This one, I can't argue, being the best. They have sent us so many SSOTW posts. They deserve it. We'll be there. They'll
got
represent.
Like a bonfire in the student section or something?
They do the powder toss every single. It's a thing they do.
Corrected. No illegal activity going on at Whitmer. It's just
it was cold outside. They were
powder.
keeping warm.
Yeah, metal trash can.
Unison Health Mental Health Board student section of the week coming to Panther Nation. I'll come hang out with some Panther commanders. In the meantime, more NLL Buckeye action. Anthony Wayne and Finley matching up 2 teams. Again, playoff seeding, very important on the line. I was just listening to Jules Gems before we got rolling here, and it's really just 2 teams that are trying to get the best position they can be. For Anthony Wayne, a loss means you could potentially not be in the playoffs. A win means you could have a home game, and then for Finley, we know they have a home game, but they're fighting for that bye in week 1.
Yeah, 100%. I'll kind of explain what's at stake in addition to what you were talking about that, and maybe Mason could talk about some of the names and particulars there. Sure. But Anthony Wayne wins. They get a 4-9 seed. A loss, like you said, they could be out. I still think they're likely to be a 6 or 7.
So many second-level points.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So Finley, a win, and they get a top 4 seed, so obviously a ton to play for. A loss, there'll be a 3 to 5 seed, likely a 2 to 3 seed. So this is, you don't want to say it's a can't lose situation. But even one team will lose, but it's not going to be a bad loss as a result because of the caliber of competition. And then I just went back because just memory. I'm thinking, this game, this matchup, this series has been close in recent years, whether it's been at White House or at Finley. And I looked up 2024, Anthony Wayne 34-25. 2023, Anthony Wayne 18-14. 2022, Anthony Wayne 9-6. 2021, Finley 24-14. 2019, Anthony Wayne 14-7. So a one-possession game, essentially, no matter what in the recent history. And you have both Coach Brungard in that history and in recent years, Coach Stephen Adams in that history. So this is a juicy matchup on BCSN+.
Yeah, and it feels like one that could be 7-0, just like Fremont Ross and Napoleon last week. It fascinated me watching Anthony Wayne's offensive approach in the Perrysburg game because Andy Brungard told us, we're going to abandon the run and we're just going to sling it around. They have not been able to run the football effectively without Roman Morrison. That's just the way it is. And not a ton of deep balls, some tight end screens, a little bit like Whitmer in that seam play that they've liked to run for a while. And Cam Miller had a good game with 6 catches. And Porter Brungard looked reasonably comfortable at times. Perrysburg's defense is so fast and so disciplined. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Anthony Wayne's got to find a way to get points on the board. Something, anything. Yeah. They proved last week that they can turn good offenses over because they picked off Brady Maxwell 3 times. Yeah. The offense now have to do their part somehow.
Yeah.
And that's been the struggle all year, even with Roman Morrison. They had him for the 7-0 Napoleon game. So, they have to find something that works. I think they're getting there. Last week, for 1 week of practice to totally change the offense, they did okay. Yep. This is going to be about, can they take that next step? Get in the end zone maybe twice.
Yeah, this is another team, right? Just so banged up and having guys playing where they weren't essentially at the beginning of the season. But I think Mike Jewell talked about it, or we talked about it. I think you talked about it when you went and talked to everybody. Committee approach, right? Braden Cesari, Cam Miller, Mason Taylor, Elijah Donowa. Those are the guys they have to lean on. They got to help Porter Brungard out. He is just a sophomore, right? He's still getting everything rolling and trying to figure everything out. There's high hopes, high expectations, but they got to get things rolling on offense. Big one, Friday night, 7 p.m. on the BCSN Plus app. Now it's time for the biggest one. We've been looking forward to it for, 10 weeks, if we're being honest. It's the game of the week brought to you by Dunn Chevy in Oregon. Hit it. Let's go. Here we go. The NLL Buckeye on the line. Seeding on the line. These two teams are the 4 and 5 seed in Division 1, Region 1. And Perrysburg has straight up said, we do not want to share the title. We want Perrysburg to be alone when this is listed. And the Panthers coming off, Mason talked about it earlier, a tough loss to Clay last week, righting the ship and maybe the spark extra that you needed. If you didn't already want to win this game, coming back after a collapse late against Clay, a little extra fire into the Panthers.
Yeah, and we talked about what Chad Long said after the Fremont Ross loss to Napoleon. The amount of penalties and self-inflicted wounds is unacceptable. Whitmer was that to the nth degree on Friday. 22 penalties called. I saw a lot of griping about that on social media. I can't speak to it at all. But we had talked about how much more disciplined Whitmer had been this year, and it felt like that all just kind of crumbled last week. And if you're Justin Keller, that coaching staff, you're maybe a little bit alarmed by the last 6 quarters of football. They led Finley 28-0 and almost lost. Led Clay 28-14 in the second half and lost, and committed so many penalties. And they had so many chances to win that game, and they couldn't do it. So you're maybe a little spooked if there's your Halloween reference, kind of. They've got to get back to basics this week. And one thing that'll really help them is the fact that Joey Morales and Jamon Holmes should be back. Yeah. Neither of them played last week. Jaden Jones got close to 30 carries, I think, and was really good. Yes, he averaged almost 9 yards a carry, which, very impressive against that Clay defense. They've got to find their discipline again because Perrysburg is a very disciplined football team. That defense is one of the few around that can probably keep up athletically with Whitmer's backs. Sure. They can, and they're good tacklers. And Joey Morales and Jamon Holmes and Jaden Jones are bigger, beefier guys that are hard to bring down. If anybody can, it's probably Perrysburg, I would think.
Yeah, a lot to unpack with this one. So in some of these other playoff matchups or Week 10 matchups that impact the playoff pairings, bracket, etc. This one's pretty clear cut. Winner gets the NLL Buckeye and a first-round home game first round bye,
yeah.
and then a successive home game in the second round. So that's it. The winner of it gets it, and then the loser, no first-round bye, and you're going to play a home game in the first round. So plenty to play for. And I was asking some of the coaches, okay, would you rather have a bye or would you rather play to keep any momentum that you have? And apparently so far in a handful of coaches that I've talked to, they want the bye because of the injuries.
Yeah, it's week 10, right?
You can get through. Everybody's banged up at this point. No one's 100%. Even the healthy guys are still a little banged and bruised. So everybody wants that first-round bye, and it is on the line at Memorial Stadium at Whitmer on Friday night. Tailgate will be there. You mentioned Jamon Holmes and Joey Morales. Kevion Lee, the receiver for Whitmer, also did not play against Clay, so he is expected to be back as well. I spoke to an unbiased person, so not Whitmer's coach and not Clay's coach in regards to the film and what penalties were called or justifiably called and, what? Huh? What did you call? Type of deal. So there were some questionable calls. That's not the sole reason why Whitmer lost that game. Credit to the team who won in Clay.
100%.
But it was a factor, and then to what degree, that is open to interpretation. But it played a factor. But if I'm Perrysburg and Coach Dirk Connor told me, it lost a little luster in the sense that it's not for the straight-up outright winner-take-all because if Whitmer wins, they lost to Clay, so they would share it with Perrysburg. So I said, yeah.
Sherrysburg.
But
Sorry.
He said, and I said, I don't know if I need to remind you. He said, you don't need to remind me. Whitmer last year lost to Anthony Wayne the week before they played Perrysburg, and then Whitmer beat Perrysburg. So a mad Whitmer team lost the week before, then took down the Jackets. Same scenario is presenting itself here. Not Anthony Wayne, but a loss to Clay. So that is a storyline. You mentioned the defense for Perrysburg. How about allowing 8 points per game? Single digits. When you're allowing single digits defensively, that is key. But they got to clean up the turnovers. Maxwell threw some picks last week against Anthony Wayne. Special teams will be a factor in this one. So this one is a juicy matchup on BCSN.
Perrysburg has the best kicker in the area in Braden Heitmeyer.
Yes.
Whitmer tends to be very good on special teams. Heitmeyer, at least going into last week, he had attempted 45 kickoffs, 35 were touchbacks, which is insane. When you're always starting at the 20-yard line, that certainly gives the defense a lot to work with. And what the defense for Perrysburg has done this year is so impressive because they lost 15 of the top 18 guys on the depth chart from last year. Of course, one of them is playing quarterback now, but you lose Josini, you lose literally everyone. And the fact that they've somehow been better this year is wild. So hats off to that whole group. They were really, really good last Friday.
Mason giving me a little tease. You hear more from Brady Heitmeyer later on this week on 13 ABC and Sports Nightly, our Athlete of the Week. Also the NLL Buckeye Player of the Year on the pitch. Pretty good
Darn
at the
right he was.
sports thing, that Brady Heitmeyer guy. We want to know who you think is going to win. Head over to our poll over on X that ends at noon on Thursday. Put your vote in. We'll be right back to put a bow on this after 30 seconds from Buffalo Wild Wings. Cisco, hit it.
I've saved so much money enjoying Buffalo Wild Wings BOGO half-off traditional wing Tuesdays. I can finally afford everything I've ever wanted in life. Wings. All I ever wanted was more wings. So yeah, buy one, get one half-off traditional wings is the perfect deal for me and my lifetime yearnings. I value it more than literally anything. Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's go sports bar.
At participating locations, not valid with other offers or discounts. See website or app for details.
That changed my mind. My new favorite part of the show is the Midas Games list. Hit it, Cisco. Trust the Midas touch and trust that everything on here is accurate. Perrysburg, Whitmer, we talked about. A-Dub, Finley, we talked about. We touched on Mona Shores, Central, Springfield, and Southview. This one, the fun one, Margaretta Gibsonburg. Gibsonburg, the number 4 seed in D7 Region 26. Margaretta, the number 2 seed in D6 Region 22. Get over that on BCSN Erie and then Huron and Edison.
Yeah, we talked about all the other ones there, but great games that impact the postseason. We'll have all the important ones on Overtime, Game Day Nation, and Football Friday on Friday.
Drew Pasteur's Fantastic 50 projects Perrysburg as the 3, Whitmer the 6 in Region 1. And you know what that means? Week 12 rematch.
There you go.
It could happen.
See, it was flipped. It was flipped last week on Pasteur's Fantastic 50, so you want more insight, make sure you're here every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. Check us out on Game Day Nation, Game Day Tailgate, the game of the week with Mason. Until then, we will see you right back here next Wednesday.